KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, happy Friday, everybody.
Hey, this is Two Mooks and a Mike. That's Jim Thomas over there, your
Mooks and a Mike. Jim Thomas and Matt McGuire over there, also a co-host. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Jim. How you doing?
Did you survive the week?
I did. And just guess what? January is gone.
Hey, man. Hares, and rabbits. Happy 1st of February. Tomorrow's Groundhog Day.
What?
Yeah.
Hair. Happy rabbit?
You don't know hares, and rabbits?
I don't.
Okay, this is a real quick thing. The last night of the last day of the month, the last thing you say out loud is hares, like bunny rabbit hairs.
Okay.
And then you make a wish quietly, and the first thing you say the next morning, the first of the month, is rabbits before you say anything else, and they say that your wish will come true.
Wow, sounds very effective.
It works. I did it last night, but you know what, Matt? I forgot my wish.
Oh, so we don't know. Well,
I don't know whether it's come true or not.
I think this bears some scientific research.
We'll work on it, but it's going to be slow. It's only 12 times a year, Matt.
All right, so now we know, people. We are, as we like to say on Two Mooks and a Mike, forewarned is forearmed.
Is forearmed, and also the magic happens.
Yeah, and now we've got like a technique to apply.
Forewarned is forearmed, and that's thanks to Patty. Thanks, Patty.
Yep, Patty, for reminding us of that excellent slogan that we have adopted.
Yeah, she did that. All right.
Patty, our social media director here at KPCA.
So,
LP.
Matt, in Petaluma, California. Did you survive the week, Matt?
I did. A little bumpy, but here we are. Still breathing, still kicking.
And rains are coming. There's going to be 60-mile-an-hour winds, lots of rain.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
I suppose so, except last time our power went out for 18 hours. Our sump pump didn't work.
That's just God keeping you humble.
The beer got warm, the wine got warm, and the ice cream melted. So it was a feast.
Well, let's see. So in the past week, the government shutdown ended.
Yes, yay.
Good news. About time.
What a waste of time.
Yeah, and $7 billion hit to the economy.
Was it that much?
Yeah, more than what Trump was wanting for his ridiculous
stupid
wall.
Or as he called it, the peach. Call it a peach. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, yes. And what about all these poor workers and also the contractors who aren't going to get back pay?
Yeah. But, and as we were talking about before the show, Jim, there's been this incredible weather pattern, the polar vortex,
Polar vortex, that's correct. And Trump says, don't you wish we had global warming now because it's so cold?
Where we need it.
So we've seen temperatures down to 50 below and maybe more in some places.
With the wind chill factor.
Correct, in places like Chicago and the Midwest. And the reason why...
Minnesota.
Yeah, and even northern Florida, not that cold, but it is going down in Florida as well.
Yeah.
What's happening is there is a polar vortex, which is basically a wind pattern that's way up high in the atmosphere, and it circles around the Arctic. When the Arctic warms up, thanks to global warming, that circle becomes elongated and pushes the second polar vortex, also known as the jet stream, further south. So the jet stream kind of meanders as the original polar vortex kind of moves too, and it basically stays in the same shape, kind of like a donut. And Historically, correct. But because of this global warming, it's changing shape. It's pushing the jet stream down south, and that's why we're having these incredible...
The jet stream is carrying all that cold weather.
Arctic air, correct.
Yeah, that's right.
So now what these poor people are going to have is called an atmospheric temperature whiplash.
Yeah.
So the temperature is going to go from 50 below with the wind chill to 50 above, 100-degree difference.
And they're saying that is unprecedented.
Yes, it's unprecedented, and they're afraid that the melting ice is going to have flooding because the ice flows aren't going to be able to break up fast enough. And then after a few days of 50 degrees, it's going to go back to zero. So whiplash, man.
Yeah. So
gonna be crazy.
That's climate change, and if Donald Trump is too stupid to recognize that,
Jesus.
once again, it just reemphasizes the fact that the man is a clear and imminent threat and danger
Yes, he is.
to all life on Earth.
He's a dotard and a threat.
Yeah, and
Yes,
speaking of life on Earth, some very grim news. The western monarch butterfly
poor butterfly.
population has collapsed. It's on the brink of disappearing. The population has dropped 86% last year, and is down totally 99.4% since the 1980s.
Wow.
Now
So-
that's like, so those
Yeah.
butterflies, western monarch butterflies, which have been around for eons and eons,
Yeah.
are on the verge of disappearing completely.
And these are the ones that migrate for thousands of miles from North America to South America and
Yeah,
back, right? What's the point of them, Matt? What do they do?
Well, I mean, they're pollinators.
Okay, there we go. So
and
our
they're
food
beautiful.
supply.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, so they're aesthetically pleasing. And
Yeah.
also, somehow they will affect our food supply. If they're gone, so will some food perhaps go, right?
Very likely.
Yeah.
And they in the latest count, there were like just barely over 28,000 of them
That's not much.
this past winter.
No, that's not much.
Yeah, so
So we're
this
in
is
deep
and this
doo-doo,
is
Matt.
typical. This is likely to impact insect-eating birds.
Oh, of course. They love the monarchs.
Yeah, and there have been reports about, flying insects populations have just collapsed. So, and the causes are urban sprawl and pesticides and herbicides and neonicotinoid herbicides.
Neonicotinoid.
Mostly used on corn and soybean, but
That's
lots
like
of other
tobacco-based, isn't it? Yeah.
And then the destruction of the milkweed habitats. Here's an interesting thing. So
That's a lot.
milkweed, which grows wild, throughout the world, but
Yeah,
is being, paved over and stuff.
Yeah. Pulled up.
Yeah, it produces a natural toxin that the monarch caterpillars eat, and when they eat that, it allows the caterpillars to fight off parasites. And now, with the reduction in the milkweed, there's like a 77% drop in parasite tolerance. Now, and the eastern monarchs are down 90% since 1996. So, that's all horrible news. And that's the global warming impact that we are seeing through the consumption of petroleum products and oil.
Right. So once again, Matt, right. And so we have global warming, which affects that. So once again, we show that the interconnectedness of all things in nature, you take out one species and it affects a whole bunch of species to the detriment of, guess who? Us.
Yeah, it's a domino effect.
Yeah.
Now, there are people that are responding, and I did want to give a shout out to the Sonoma County Pachamama Alliance.
Could you spell that, please?
Yeah, Pachamama.
Pachamama.
Yeah, Pachamama. Okay. And the Aquas community, they're presenting an event called Introduction to Drawdown. And this is based on the book and work by Paul Hawken.
Oh, okay.
Right? Who's written about, population and impacts and stuff. This is going to be held at the old seed bank on the corner of Washington and Petaluma
So
Boulevard.
the literal old bank, not the new seed bank, but the old
Correct.
one. So it's right on the corner. It's the old bank, the beautiful bank. Right?
That's right. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be on the 13th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's free. But they do want you to RSVP, so folks, get out your pencil because I'm going to give you a phone number here.
Yeah, all right.
The phone number is 347-9465. That's 347-9465.
In the 707 area code.
Yeah, and you can call or text and just say you want to come. I'm going to go. Should be really interesting.
Good.
And
so you see Matt there.
And what this is that it's the 100 best ways to fight carbon pollution.
Wow.
So this is
All right.
practical.
So give up your private jet, Matt. That's one.
That
Two
won't be hard.
Give up your gas-powered car, your ICE car, internal combustion engine, which you've already done.
Yeah, that won't be hard.
Right? Stop snoring.
Right.
That's going to be hard.
Put solar on your car. Snoring, I don't know about
Doesn't it have something to do with it?
Maybe
Maybe that's something else.
I might be sequestering carbon when I snore. I'm not sure about
that.
that.
I'm thinking of flatulence, and that's what cows do. So don't do that either.
Yeah,
that's methane.
No methane. Yeah.
Right. Solar panels.
All right. Solar panels.
Yeah.
But so, this is basically, it's going to be followed by a series of workshops designed to enroll activists, and it will be facilitated by Pachamama spokesperson Nelson Berry.
Yeah, good. Okay, sounds like a good cause.
For further information, you can go to the Pachamama Alliance online, which is, I think it's www.connect.pachamama.org.
P-A-C-A...
P-A-C-H.
P-A-C-H-M-A-M-A.
Pachamama.
Pachamama. Okay.
Just the way it sounds.
Hope everybody got that.
And here's another thing, Jim. So things are desperate in the world, no question about it. But then you get things like Sweden is talking about banning the sale of internal combustion engine vehicles by 2030.
Will we still be alive then?
Well, it's 10 years, 11
I hope
years.
so.
I
Gosh,
hope so.
Matt, that's exciting. Okay, so Sweden, one of their cars is Volvo, which is now owned by Chinese company.
And Volvo has said that they're going to, in 2 years, make no more internal combustion engines.
All electric cars.
Yeah,
and
that's
probably
right.
maybe hydrogen. I hope not, because I think that's a dead-end technology.
Yeah, I do
but
too.
anyway, electric cars, which would be exciting.
Sweden is joining Norway and Denmark, France, the United Kingdom, Ireland, Spain, Germany, who are all working in this direction, unlike the United States.
I was going to say the one that's missing is us.
Yeah, but
US.
now, this is not going to be easy because, of course, people that live in rural areas are dependent upon their gas-burning cars. Are these countries going to be able to replace that with an electric powered infrastructure?
I don't know.
With sufficient effort, yes, I think that can be done.
And if the whole government is behind it, that might work.
Yeah.
But one of the things they're proving is in the polar vortex, I should say, in the United States, the Tesla automobiles have not been too successful because the battery deteriorates. The efficiency of it drops
when it's cold.
So you plug in your Tesla, it's liquid cooled, which means it's also liquid heated. But if you only have a 110 voltage, it's not going to do anything to charge the battery. It'll just keep the battery warm. So it's actually a net loss.
So that's a technical issue, but
right.
nonetheless, you compare that
servable.
You compare that to a diesel Ram pickup truck that gets 15 miles to the gallon.
That's right, and spews all this stuff.
Yeah, and what are all the negative impacts of mining the oil and refining and all that?
The particulate matter in diesels. There's no such thing as clean diesel, like there's no such thing as clean coal.
That's right.
So
exactly
let's get rid of it.
Yeah, and in fact, here's another interesting point: the corporate purchases of clean energy through what are PPAs, which are power purchase agreements, more than doubled in 2018.
So wait a minute, Matt. Are you saying that the change is happening, that the industry is
corporations.
They're starting to see the future, and they're starting to go, wait a minute, fossil fuels and internal combustion engines, we've reached the peak. It's time to move on, and let's actually do something to save the planet.
Many of the biggest corporations that are doing that are tech companies, Google.
How about that?
Check this out, Jim. So in 2018, there was 13.4 gigawatts of clean energy purchased.
That seems like a lot.
Versus 6.1 in 2017.
Well, hold on. So they more than doubled their capacity of the gigawatts.
How much clean energy that they have arranged to purchase.
Good.
And that's 121 corporations in 21 countries, of which 60% were in the United States.
60%.
60%.
That's encouraging.
So that's good because you've got Trump's out there, touting coal.
Right.
People are going, no, it's filthy, it's dirty, and it's not competitive. And even some countries companies actually have some social consciousness.
That's good.
But I know Google's been a big one. In last year, the biggest single corporate purchaser of clean energy was Facebook. Now, Facebook, is on my permanent poop list.
Yeah.
But, I'm glad they're doing that. You got to support right action where you find it.
Right.
They were followed by AT&T.
And I know that Apple has a whole solar farm back east.
And Google has purchased tons of solar power, too. So.
And not just that, but Google also has a lot of battery backup. So they're storing their energy and meeting it out as the need arises. And California has this whole thing, Matt, remember, in the California desert. Jerry Brown was doing the solar, the mirrors reflecting on a big
that's a
tank of salt, actually.
Solar thermal.
That's correct, storing energy. So what do you do when the sun goes down? So scientists are working on this. This is very encouraging.
And that's why wind power is also a rapidly growing energy source because
especially offshore,
the sun goes down, but the wind still blows.
The winds keep going. That's right. Yeah. Especially offshore, so it's out of sight. People object to it, killing birds because of migratory patterns.
Yeah.
But having it offshore, you can make it even bigger than you have on land. And I sent you an article on the size of some of the blades. Is
huge,
longer than 2 football fields.
Yeah.
One blade.
One blade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But and they've rapidly increase the efficiency while slowing down the speed of the blades, which drops the amount of damage to bird life.
Avian deaths, bat deaths. Another thing is in the North Sea, off of Scotland, actually, they're doing a whole thing of wave energy and a lot of research on that. And they're finding real good, big strides in how to harness the energy of the waves to generate electricity.
That's a real interesting one because there's constant wave action.
And tides.
Right? Unless we, mess up the climate so much that the oceans all go stagnant.
There's hope we could do that.
But really, I mean, and there are significant technical issues to make wave power work. For instance, the salt water is very corrosive. Yeah. You get storms.
Right.
How do you anchor it?
Right.
There's a bunch of different technological approaches, floating devices and stuff. They're quite interesting.
Matt,
I think that's one that's, that is going to come about and be a remarkable source of energy.
That would be pretty cool. I heard a scientist say we are no longer in the discovery era like they were in the 1600s, 1700s, where everything was new. Science was the big thing. Uh-huh. I disagree. I think what we're just talking about now with alternative energy, getting off of fossil fuels, this is where a lot of discovery is still happening. And it's a very exciting time to be alive. Yeah. Let's hope that you and I are both alive by 2030.
If we can keep the race alive long enough, there's some great potential.
We've got to keep 2 Mooks and a Mike alive that long, right. Matt.
Well, and of course, we take hope from certain young people, As we've talked about on the show before, Jim, they're the young people who are suing the oil companies.
Love that.
For basically, lying and hiding the truth about, the pollution caused by, fossil fuel consumption.
Right. And they're suing because they're saying you are ruining our future with climate change. Yeah. So you have an article on a 16-year-old.
So there's a young lady whose name is Greta Thunberg, and she's a Swedish high school kid. And she's a climate activist.
Good on her.
And she actually spoke at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Yeah, thank you. And basically, it's just great because she, that's a collection of the world's biggest capitalists, the movers and shakers.
They're flying their private jets to get there.
Presidents.
Multimillionaires.
Various and sundry, agency heads and such, right? Yeah. So she's telling them, quote, "I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear I feel every day."
Wow.
Now, since 1971, the business executives and the world beaters, have been meeting to promote globalization as, something that improves lives and boosts prosperity, right?
Right.
Well, this year, in the face of the constantly worsening, climate crisis, and it is a crisis, more of them flew on private jets and created a bigger carbon footprint than ever before.
Right.
So she's definitely trying to wake up the idiots that need to be woken up.
So she panics in a different way than we panic. We panic because of our government or our president. She panics because of the need to get on the stick and get moving on climate change.
Here's what she says, Jim, and this is absolutely right.
Mm-hmm, let's hear it.
She says that... we owe it to the young people to give them hope. I want you to act as if the house was on fire.
Like that.
Because it is.
Exactly right, Matt. It is. People don't see that we're heads in the sand. And living in Northern California, where our weather is blessedly calm compared to like the polar vortex, except for the fires. And except for the earthquakes, and except for the floods, and except for drought.
We're still better off than a lot of parts of the world.
We are. Australia is on fire right now.
Her point is that, that we're not going to be, the world is not going to meet the Paris Accord goal of keeping global warming below a 2.7 degree Fahrenheit rise. Last year, carbon pollution increased, worldwide.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And so, these guys need to listen to a 16-year-old kid because she's right and they're wrong and they're destroying the world. And, God damn it, they need to wake up and listen and change their behavior.
That's good. And Matt, again, it's the youth who are coming in to say they're more woke than we are, and they're coming in to say, let's do something about this. If you won't, I will. Or we will.
Exactly.
And it's Emma Gonzalez and David Hogg and those people with gun control.
Yeah. And here's another good one, Jim.
All right, let's hear it.
Germany is planning on ending all coal use in 19 years by 2038. They've come up with a plan.
That's really
now
amazing.
It is a $45 billion investment.
Whoa.
But they've come up with a plan to eliminate all coal plants. And Germany actually gets 40% of its electricity from burning coal, and that coal is lignite, and lignite is the dirtiest,
worst of all,
most polluting form of coal.
So again, there's no such thing as clean coal, but I guess lignite is dirtier than even that clean coal.
Filthy. Yeah. And Germany is a huge, manufacturing and economic powerhouse.
So they need power to do the manufacturing and also to generate electricity. And coal is the easiest and cheapest way for a long time.
Cheapest unless you count the real cost, because
Correct.
They are spending billions of dollars on healthcare costs and public health costs related to coal use.
So it's the price downstream that often people don't look at. They just look at the bottom
line.
Well,
the corporations
originally just mining it and burning it, and that's it. They don't care.
Yeah, the corporations want to, they want to push off all the real cost that they are creating off onto anybody but their investors. And that's the danger of capitalism that has to change.
So, Matt, do you remember years ago the whole thing of acid rain? And I remember they were talking about acid rain. The lakes in Canada were pristine, but nothing was growing in it because of the acid rain. And they were blaming it on...
The water becomes too acidic for life to be supported.
They were blaming it on the pollution of the factories in the United States, like in Michigan, that would blow across into Canada. And when it would rain, the particles in the rain, in the clouds, would fall down, and that would be the acidic.
The water would interact with the ash, and
that's correct. And so basically it would be totally dead. Beautiful, but dead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then I was watching a little documentary on Flint, Michigan and Evart, Michigan, where Nestle has been pumping water to sell in bottles, plastic bottles, to people in Flint who still have not had their pipes that were poisoned by the corrupt state government.
Still not.
It still have not been replaced. And they've got huge water bills for water they can't wash with or drink. And, they're being billed for that. And so they've got huge bags of bottled water that they have to use.
All in plastic.
Mm-hmm. They don't want to do that. And here, 80 miles away, Nestle is pumping, water out and paying nothing for it. Yeah. And the rivers and the streams have dropped, and all the, the trout streams have become dead. There's nothing living in them, right?
Gosh.
So again, corporate behavior has, is could be the thing. Capitalist corporate behavior could be what kills the human race.
Oh, man. So, Matt, instead of spending $5 billion on Trump's wall, what if they took some of that money and fixed Flint?
How about that?
Sakes?
Yeah. Well, as you remember, some weeks ago, I was reporting that 3% of the Pentagon's budget could eliminate hunger in the whole world. 3%. Now what are we spending all that on? We're spending it on Lockheed and Raytheon and all these,
the contractors.
All these contractors that are building, super deadly weapons and developing all the technology.
Or being in Syria, being in Afghanistan, being in Iraq.
Protecting our empire, which is basically, trying to control the world's resources, like, for instance, the oil in the Mideast and where else?
Venezuela.
Exactly.
Right. So
which is why we're interfering in Venezuela.
Which is another whole thing where Bolton appeared on a press conference, and he was holding a yellow pad that said 5,000 troops to Venezuela, ?
Yeah.
And hearing pundits who work for the Obama administration said, we would never do that. We would always have any of our notes covered in a cover like a folder. So they're thinking Bolton is doing this to send a message. Yeah. Correct. And Trump says nothing is off the table. Everything is on the table.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't need to, wave his folder around because they've been, really belligerent and saber rattling. We recognize the president of the National Assembly, and because we think that the election that reelected Maduro was illegitimate. Well, where the hell were they when Honduras legitimately, honestly elected president was deposed by a military coup?
Yeah, right. Matt. So we've always
10 or 12 years ago.
Yeah, we've always gone down to South America and just raped the land
and meddled in their government.
Absolutely, take what we want. Yeah, and the same thing with Cuba. I mean, let Cuba was the one that had free education and free healthcare. Yes, it was communist, but it seemed like it worked pretty well.
It's interesting that
Castro. I don't want to also say that Castro is not a nice guy, and he did do a lot of horrible things to his people.
Yeah, but not nearly as bad as Bashar Assad in
Thank you.
Syria.
Thank you.
Or
Poisoning these people.
Azerbaijan, or
Correct.
you can go down the list, Honduras, right?
All the
but
things-
it's interesting, Jim, that Mexico and Cuba and Uruguay, and there's one other South American country that has not turned on Venezuela. Now, the other countries like Brazil, now in the hands of a really right-wing
Belisaro.
fascist president, and a bunch of the other ones.
Yeah.
I was listening to a program on the radio the other day that was saying those countries are all basically, their governments are in the pockets of the corporations.
Oh, there we go.
You know, the extracting industries, you know, the arms and weapons dealers, you know, all those governments have, you know, they're tainted, basically.
Yeah, okay.
Not that Maduro's government is clean. It is not. And not that he's
No.
been a good administrator.
Get him out.
He's not.
Right.
But the people that, you know, Trump and this administration are supporting are no better. They're going to be all the more corporate patsies, because that's one thing you can say about Maduro. He has not been a patsy to American corporate interests.
Yeah,
you know?
neither has Duterte either.
Well, that's true.
So
you know.
he's not been a patsy to the U.S. So, Matt, it's a mess. I think what you said earlier, that it all ties back to the capitalism, that it's going to ruin everything. I think that's where we're going.
Yeah. And, you know, check this out, Jim. So the United States lifted some sanctions on, you know, several Russian companies tied to the oligarch Oleg Deripaska. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin lifted the sanctions, and people go, "What? Why are you doing that now?" You know, these are companies that deal in like in aluminum and such. But it's Deripaska is a close ally of Putin, and he was a business partner with Paul Manafort, right?
Yeah.
And then another Putin pal, another oligarch benefiting from these sanctions being lifted is Len Blavatnik. And Len Blavatnik was a major donor to Mitch McConnell over the years.
That surprised me. When you told me that,
Yeah.
I
How
had
about
not
that?
heard that before.
This is like blatant corruption.
Yeah.
So he gave McConnell and the GOP political action committees over $7 million. You think they're not listening to him?
Wow.
$7 million. And to Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham.
You know, and these are all people like, well, Russia's our friend, you know. And, of course, McConnell and these guys voted to lift the sanctions.
Yeah, lift the sanctions. And also, here's a pro-Russian Twitter account obtained, altered, and spread confidential information from Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation in order to discredit the investigation and the American government. According to the Justice Department, the information stems from Mueller's indictment of a Russian company that funded trolls who subverted the 2016 election.
But I heard that information was also, they skewed it, too. It wasn't accurate.
Yes, right. So, and the fact that Mueller made this public blew back. It was a blowback. So it basically defanged what they were trying to do, which is good.
Yeah. Well,
one more thing about Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro, he warned that American intervention in Venezuela would lead to a, quote, Vietnam worse than they can imagine, unquote. And you know what,
right.
Matt? I believe that.
Yeah, it's true because, you know, guess who else is backing Venezuela? Russia and China.
There we go.
You know,
all right.
So that's the one thing that's staying Bolton in Trump's hands, I think.
But I think barely. And I think that
barely.
I can see if the investigation into Trump gets more intense, that he would absolutely have an invasion of Venezuela.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be one of those kinds of excuses like,
sure.
national
National emergency.
we'll have a war, right?
Right, right, exactly.
A fine old American tradition.
Yeah.
Now, closer to home, PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric, declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Good or bad, Matt? Good or
bad? Well,
it's
I think it's bad. I don't think they necessarily had to do that.
No.
The Utility Reform Network is saying, hey, we don't see a cause for this, and one of the major investors in PG&E is saying, no, they shouldn't do that. They should come up with a plan. But
they did this so they could wiggle out of it, right?
Well, here's what's going on.
Payments.
Chapter 11 is a reorganization of their debts, but what that means is that unsecured creditors, i.e., those people whose houses were burned down because of negligence on PG&E's part, are not secured creditors. First people that are going to get paid are the lawyers. Second people that are going to get paid are the banks that lent them money.
Right.
Third people are other, financiers that have contracts.
Right.
And then
what about investors? They're also in there too.
Well, but the
stockholders.
Stockholders are down the list and are potentially in danger of taking losses.
Yeah.
But the people whose houses got burned down in one of the 17 fires that PG&E has been found accountable for are very likely, if
Not going to get anything.
Well, they may get something.
Really?
It may be pennies on the dollar. They may get more than that, but there's going to be a long delay.
So-
Because this could take up to 2 years,
Oh,
right?
2 years. So what are these people going to do in the meantime?
Exactly.
They can't.
Now-
They can't afford to rebuild. Many of them are underinsured, not necessarily.
Now, let me
consciously
tell you a
of
little
that.
bit more about PG&E.
Yeah. Okay.
So the federal judge, William Alsop, who's overseeing PG&E, says that he ruled that they broke their probation that they were on from the San Bruno gas line explosion, right? And they broke probation by not notifying the probation department that it was being investigated for possible criminal charges in the 2017 Honey Fire in Butte County. Now, that ended up getting a civil settlement. There were no charges. But in the meantime, the judge has really lashed out. He says that PG&E's claim that they can't trim more trees due to a lack of available labor is complete
I don't.
horse pucky.
I don't believe that.
Really. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
There's people that want those jobs, right? Now, he says that they're moving too slow, and they are wasting billions of dollars paying dividends to
There we go.
shareholders.
That's it.
Capitalism rears
Right,
its
there we
ugly
go.
head, right?
So the shareholders are winning out. So they're collecting before they actually
In the meantime,
file
now,
Chapter 11.
Yeah,
And that's going
before-
to take some time.
Yeah, but now they file Chapter
Yeah.
11, so all that puts a freeze on things, right? But the judge says that they're paying shareholders when they should have been cutting more trees and improving their safety systems. He's wants to see the company's safety plan that's now required by California law. That came out of that legislation that got them off the hook partially for the 2017 fires. That says that if they can show a stress test that they'll pay so
Right,
much, but
right.
if they can't afford that, they can
They wiggle out of
bond it and
Yeah.
and make the ratepayers pay
Yeah.
it, right? So the judge wants to see that safety plan. He also slammed the State Public Utilities Commission too, because the PUC pushed back on his threat to make them come up with a plan that shows how they trim all the trees. And PG&E says, "Oh, that'll cost 75
Right.
to 150 billion.
Right,
We can never do it." Judge isn't buying it, but the PUC pushed back on the judge. He's going to the PUC. Hey, how come all these fires are happening on your watch and you haven't done anything to make this utility come up with a plan
Thank you.
and become more responsible about safety?
Like maybe putting wires underground.
Like that's one of them.
Yeah.
But or just trimming the trees. I mean,
Yeah, that would
and
be-
prioritizing.
But some of
and,
it is-
and doing a shutdown when the winds get high.
Some of the a lot of the trees are in national parks, or national forest land. So it's not up to the state of California to do that. So it has to be the government that would do that.
Well, there's coordination, but it's up to the utility to coordinate and manage.
yeah,
it,
right. And they're
They
absolutely not doing that.
They have the rights of way. They have the easements, so it's
they
on
should
them.
do that. Yeah.
Now, out of this, in the Chapter 11, this is the truth. This is what's ugly. PG&E wants out of 2 of its green energy contracts, major contracts.
This is going to affect us.
Yeah. So, and they're saying this is potentially the first large climate-caused bankruptcy.
Uh-oh.
So more to come there, right?
So we don't know what's going to happen with that, with their green energy, which they've been pretty good with that
Yeah.
in giving you rebates for certain appliances that are green,
Yeah.
giving you rebates for cars.
Yeah, electric cars.
Which is
but
pretty nice.
heretofore they have been pursuing a pretty good portfolio of
Not
renewable
bad.
energy,
Yep,
right?
yeah.
But suddenly it's like, bottom line, bottom line, bottom line.
Yeah.
All right, so check this out, Jim. They want the judge to okay a payment of $130 million as bonuses to their employees.
What?
Oh, but it gets better. That doesn't include the bonuses they're going to ask the judge for later for their executives.
Of course the executives will get
Right?
that first.
So I hope that judge, gives them the middle finger.
I
on
hope
that.
so. I
Now,
really hope so.
On the plus side, this is a potential opportunity for community choice aggregation. Cities and counties such as Sonoma Clean Power,
Yeah, right.
to maybe take over some portion of the infrastructure.
Which is something we've been talking about before and something I really advocate. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
The nice thing about it, though, is that PG&E maintain the lines,
the delivery system,
which is going to be very expensive to take over.
Yeah.
But if this is what it's going to come down to, it's going to be more expensive and not have a responsibility. Maybe we need to do that.
And here's how this works. So with community choice aggregation, you have a lot more local control. And as we
Great.
see with
That's good.
Sonoma Clean Power, they have pursued green energy projects,
they have.
solar projects,
Right.
Wind projects, lots of it. And what that means is that, if you produce your power where you're near where you're consuming it, then you don't have to have these huge aggregated power systems with, the huge high tension power lines running all over the country, right? Which means you can reduce the risk of trees and, with storms, the power lines and storms coming down, et cetera.
So that's decentralizing it. Also, Matt, what
Exactly.
this will do is apparently Russia has been targeting our electrical power grid in the United States.
Well, Russia and China.
And China too, but specifically Russia. And one of the things about having it decentralized, it's going to be much harder for them to do that if they
Exactly.
can do that at all. So I
Exactly.
think that all we have to do is just unplug the internet.
Well,
And then just have it be sending out power in our own little private Idaho.
yeah. It's
I'm
not
simplifying
quite that
it.
simple,
I'm
but
simplifying it.
But you're pointing in the right direction,
Right. I mean, it's centralized. It's going to be,
Yeah.
we control it ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And the more you
The
can,
best would be fusion in our backyard.
Yeah,
Get your power plant.
yeah. Forget that. Fusion doesn't work. But
It works in a little bit.
That's a whole nother topic, but we're not
I'll
going there
look
now. The grid is intertied across, multiple states, and there are contracts, and so you can't necessarily just stop them right away. One of the positive linings of a potential reorganization is that ratepayers are paying what are called stranded costs, and that is where before we went to a community choice aggregation, PG&E signed a bunch of power contracts, and some of them were clean energy contracts, but they were at higher rates than are currently available. And so if it's possible, there may be some ways to eliminate now we don't want to eliminate the green energy production, but we do want to bring the cost down. So if they can reestablish new contracts for green energy production at the current lower rates, then that could have a favorable, positive impact on the ratepayers. But generally, it is a very intertied system, and the more you can produce and use your power in the same general vicinity, the more that does protect you from potential, cyber attacks.
Okay, good. Let's move on.
Okay.
So, Matt, I don't know whether anyone's caught on to your Pornhub watching things, but it's good. It's been a good week for idle hands because Pornhub, the streaming pornography service, announced a 6.3% increase in traffic from the Washington, D.C. metro area. Guess when? During the ongoing government shutdown. And an Arizona lawmaker wants to tax pornography and use the proceeds to help build President Trump's border wall. The bill from the GOP state representative Gail Griffin would require tech companies to install porn-blocking software on internet-connected devices, which users could disable by paying a $20 fee to be used for wall construction. That's a good use of porn, don't you think?
That's going to fly just like the Kickstarter effort to try to fund the wall.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, this is going to be the porn wall.
Yeah, good luck on that.
I don't know. I think it's got something there.
Is that person smoking crack?
No. Well, speaking of crack, this is close. British eels, the slithery things, are becoming hyperactive because of urinated cocaine entering the River Thames through the sewage system, according to new research. Scientists estimate that about 80,000 lines of cocaine are entering the Thames per day. 80,000 lines.
Wow.
So don't pee in your toilet there.
Yeah.
Pee somewhere else.
If you're poor and you want to get high,
That's
now
it.
you know where to go.
That's right. Just take a swim in the Thames.
That's right. Grab an eel.
That's it. Oh, my God.
Oh, that is scary.
All right.
So, the weird life goes on.
Yes, it does.
Here's some stuff I've been happy to read about.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so Elizabeth Warren, that's like tax the rich and eat the rich, right?
Eat the rich.
So Elizabeth Warren
Been
has
a
her
long time.
2%, what they're calling a greed tax, I like that, on all wealth of the top richest 1% of the people in the country, and 3% on the top 0.01%.
Okay,
right?
that's good.
And that would be an annual, charge. And so, no matter whether you've made that money through investments or inheritance, you got to start paying your fair share. So that's a good one. And then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has the 70% incremental tax on income over $10 million.
Over $10 million. So $9 million, 9.999.
anything under
You don't
$10
get,
million.
you have the regular tax rate, but
Exactly.
anything above 10, it's only a 70%.
Yeah, which
Which has been done before.
Yeah,
It's not new.
that's not the highest.
But the
it's
people
been.
at Davos are clutching their pearls and saying
That's
it's
right.
not going to work.
And Bernie Sanders has got the 99.8% tax act to strengthen the inheritance tax. He says that 588 billionaire families with a combined net worth of over $3 trillion would owe up to $2.2 trillion under his bill. So between the three of them, it's like, boy, wouldn't that be great if we got all three of those passed? And then there might be a rebalancing of the economy, and people might be able to start breathing, a little bit more easy, because that money could go to healthcare, it could go to education, it could go to climate protection.
So it seems like, Matt, this is an idea whose time is coming rapidly, and it also seems like it's connected to the revamping of Prop 13, which is going to be keeping money back into the communities instead of just having it be into corporations.
Yeah, well, you might think that, but not if you look at the Senate. Because Mitch McConnell and 12 other Republican senators just passed a bill to eliminate the inheritance tax completely.
Oh, great. All right. So here we go. The same old tricks.
Oh, God, really? I mean, that, it's funny, Jim, because that inheritance tax will only affect 1,700 estates this year. That's like 0.2% of U.S. families.
That's hardly anything.
Yeah, it's like you got to be worth more than $11 million before the inheritance tax kicks in.
I think that kicks you and me out of that. Right?
Yeah.
So, all right, there we go.
And the inheritance tax was really designed to, help prevent the hoarding of wealth.
The hoarding of wealth over generation, but to generation is to break it up to make it be more equitable. Yeah. I think it's a good idea. Wow. Okay. So the NFL reportedly used a polling firm to find out if Americans thought Colin Kaepernick should have been signed by a team following his free agency and President Trump's attacks on NFL players who have continued to protest police brutality. The findings could become a point of contention in Kaepernick's complaint that NFL owners colluded to keep him out of the league.
Yeah, blacklisted. Well, what does the poll say?
Doesn't. They're saying they're taking
the poll. That'd be interesting.
That they're using it. So that's good, because I think he has got a legitimate complaint that the NFL colluded to keep him out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I did read that Nike, after they included him in their advertising campaign, had a huge bump up in their sales.
The press first talked about teams in the Bible Belt that use Nike products going out and burning everything and having it be on YouTube. But then it turned out, you're right, it was a great publicity thing and a big bump up. That's good.
Yeah, so I mean, I think people really see that he's getting the shaft.
I think so too.
Yeah,
and whether he plays again, who knows?
So, Jim, you remember what a lousy governor Scott Walker was for Wisconsin?
Yes, I do.
You remember he and Trump were touting the big deal with Foxconn to build a big, huge plant in Wisconsin.
Yes,
Foxconn was going to pledge $10 billion and create 13,000 jobs.
Yes, right.
They changed their mind.
They're not going to do it.
They're not going to build it. It's like, oh, no, our sales are off. And, this was a deal that the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation put together. Now, that's a public-private agency that Walker formed with his Republican legislature. Yeah. Economic development,
that's good.
Get the shackles off the job creators and it'll all be good,
It'll all trickle down.
Yeah, and then when people found out the details of the deal, they were furious.
They were furious,
because basically Wisconsin was going to give them $3 billion in state tax credits and breaks, which meant that it was going to take 25 years before Wisconsin saw a penny in any kind of
taxing.
How long? 25 years.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, I mean, good riddance to Foxconn and Scott Walker and Donald Trump.
Hold on to your knickers, Matt, because 38 minutes ago, 2 days after Foxconn said it no longer planned to build a sprawling new factory in Wisconsin, the Taiwanese technology giant appears to have reversed course.
Oh, there you are going to build
citing a personal conversation, quote unquote, with President Trump. The surprise announcement followed heavy backlash in Wisconsin, which in 2017 agreed to pay the prominent electronics maker and supplier to Apple at least $3 billion in state tax incentives.
Yeah.
That's what you just said. Yeah. At the time, Foxconn pledged to deliver ... After productive discussions between the White House and the company, and after a personal conversation between President Donald J. Trump and Chairman Terry Gao, Foxconn is moving forward with our planned construction of a Gen 6 fab facility, which will be at the heart of the Wisconsin Valley Science and Technology Park, the company said in a statement on Friday.
Now, I wonder how many jobs will actually be created.
Yeah, good question. Foxconn declined to comment on how Friday's decision was reached and when hiring is expected to begin. How about that?
Breaking news right here at 2 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Well, so if you were in Wisconsin and you knew it was going to take 25 years before the state saw anything from it.
They don't say that, do they? They
don't say that. I'd still be pissed,
Yeah.
I'd be furious.
I would too. Yeah, I wouldn't trust them.
Wow.
Oh, it says the flip-flop puzzled analysts who have followed the deal, going back and forth seemingly at random, gives employees, investors, and the community in which you operate cause for concern. That's exactly what we just said.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
Here's a quote. This is from Senator Sherrod Brown, he's doing a listening tour. He hasn't declared his candidacy for the 2020 presidency yet. He's thinking about it.
Yeah.
I like his politics a lot. I like the way he speaks.
Yeah.
Except he does sound as if somebody hit him in the throat. He sounds like he's really hoarse. But so what? What he says is really nice. He says he's talking about Trump. He says he uses his phony populism to distract from the fact that he has used the White House to enrich billionaires like himself. Real populism is not racist. Real populism is not anti-Semitic. Real populists don't engage in hate speech and don't rip babies from families at the border. Real populists don't insult people's intelligence by lying.
Yeah.
How about that?
Good for him.
He's kicking off his Dignity of Work tour by listening to differentiating his populism from Donald Trump. So
Excellent.
He says he's a populist too.
Yeah, well, and
in the
well
old
put.
way, like
True populism.
That's correct.
Like
That's correct.
Like the populist movement in the 1920s.
That's
in
right.
This country.
In Wisconsin, Michigan,
in
Ohio,
Texas.
Right.
Yeah. So Kamala Harris, officially threw her hat in for the running for president.
Yeah.
She had a launch in Oakland. Over 20,000 people showed up.
That's a lot of people, man.
Yeah, and she says, we have foreign powers infecting the White House like malware.
I love that.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, that's really good.
And she says, she recognizes the criminal justice system locks up too many poor black and brown people. She wants to expand health care access. She wants to make college more affordable. She promises to unify the U.S.
Good.
Oh, how refreshing.
Yeah, it'd be really refreshing.
Yeah, and Cory Booker threw his hat in the ring.
He's the first African-American senator from New Jersey and a former mayor of Newark. He's a vegan and former college football player. He's a Rhodes Scholar and a Yale Law School graduate. He was a huge hunger-striking city councilman and is also an occasional actor who appeared as himself alongside former Republican Senator Orrin Hatch on the NBC comedy Parks and Rec. So he did an unsuccessful campaign for mayor as a subject of the documentary from Street Fight. He's been in the trenches, Matt. He knows what he's talking about.
That's right, and he says he's the only guy that goes home to a low-income community.
How about that?
Yeah.
He supports a minimum $15 an hour wage and guaranteed jobs. For guns, he would like to have required background checks and ban assault weapons. Healthcare backs Medicare for all and importing prescription drugs. Supports DACA, opposes Trump's policies. Et cetera, et cetera. So he's a person to watch, I think.
Yeah.
Kellyanne Conway claims, the spokesperson for Trump, claims that Cory Booker's campaign is sexist.
How would she know?
Yeah. She says, I would ask him a couple of questions today as he runs from my native New Jersey. One is, what is wrong with the candidates that are already in there? What is your objection to Kamala Harris running, Elizabeth Warren, Kirsten Gillibrand, these others who have already announced, and Tulsi Gabbard maybe. Let's not even talk about Tulsi Gabbard. She's just
flip-flopper all over.
We don't want to talk about her. Yeah. But anyway, she says that Cory Booker is a sexist because he's running against these women. My, oh my.
He's unmarried,
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Wow, the first bachelor president.
Yeah,
Cool.
So,
all right, there we go.
Yeah, well, it's good to see progressives, untainted progressives actually out there talking meat and potato issues.
That's not.
It's
not
about
like,
time.
Yeah, not like Schultz, the ex-CEO of Starbucks, who wants to be in the a moderate. He thinks that
quote unquote moderate
things are too extreme on both sides.
Yeah, now
let's all get together.
Yeah, I mean it's like Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker. They're all moderates. They all want what the populace wants.
Hey, how
That's
about
what
that?
the polling shows.
That's right. How about that?
Yeah, and so a guy like Schultz comes along, and it's like, I'm the moderate. No,
you're
the corporate shill.
No,
and how would you know? You're a billionaire. You don't live the life of a person that doesn't have a $400 margin in their bank for an emergency.
Right. Exactly. He just wants to buy his way to the top.
Yeah.
So it's not a good idea to boycott Starbucks for that reason because he's the ex-CEO, Matt. But it's a good idea to boycott Starbucks if you don't like their coffee.
Yeah,
that's the only reason why I would not go. And also their sandwiches, not so good.
Well, I mentioned Facebook buying clean energy earlier, Jim.
Yes.
But, they're always on my, list.
Oh, whoa, boop.
Apple recently banned the use of their data collection app by Facebook. Facebook broke Apple's rules. Now, this is basically Apple had this application that they would let developers use within their own companies to, develop techniques and things. But it turns out that Facebook broke the rules regarding privacy and such. They had a secret effort to pay users, some as young as 13 years old.
That's crazy.
$20 a month
Hey, I'd do that.
to install this research app on their devices that could collect intimate information about their online behavior and communications. They claimed that these kids they were paying were, Facebook employees.
Yeah.
And Apple said, no, that's not, you're lying. We're cutting you off.
Yeah.
And so, and of course, this application has much looser privacy restrictions.
Sure, yeah, they can track anything.
Yeah, so...
and also, Facebook promised Apple that the app would only be used by Facebook employees, though this clearly was not the case.
Exactly.
Yeah, it says in response to Facebook clearly breaching the agreement, Apple shut down their ability to use internal iOS apps for its employees and beta apps the company is testing, which could affect the company's productivity and product development. It also did the same thing with Google.
Well, and, like Zuckerberg, oh, gee, I'm sorry. It's like all the invasion of privacy. Oh, yeah, well, I won't do that. Well, guess what? Facebook is now unifying the underlying technical infrastructure of WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook Messenger. Facebook owns all three of those.
Wow.
They're the three largest communication platforms. They have 2.6 billion users.
Not cool.
And now, you can communicate all across all three platforms, using any one of them.
Under the umbrella of Facebook.
So this is a way for them to get a better grip on their users.
Yeah.
It raises all kinds of issues like antitrust questions.
Yeah, privacy
issues,
so
security issues.
So despite this laundry list of scandals, Facebook has managed to post record profits and revenue.
Yeah, and how about that? And this is after Zuckerberg had vowed that he would leave these platforms alone.
Yeah.
Right? He forgot.
Don't trust him. Matt, every time we talk about Facebook on this show, I vow that I'm going to get rid of Facebook, get out of it.
Well, if you haven't, here's one more reason. Let me give you another one.
That's one more straw.
Here's another one. Facebook allowed kids to rack up huge bills on their digital games without parental okay or oversight.
That's not right.
And they, a court ordered the release of internal memos which showed that they looked at measures to prevent that abuse, but they wouldn't adopt them. Folks, Facebook is evil. It may be fun and you may be addicted, but know that they are evil.
They're evil, yes.
Just telling you.
All right, so a would-be snake smuggler was nabbed by German customs officials after they noticed an unusual bulge in his pants. I'm going to pause right here for effect.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Is that a snake in your pants, or are you happy to see me?
I don't know. It's hissing. Authorities said the man was 43. He was attempting to board an Israel-bound flight from Berlin airport with a nearly 16-inch-long boa constrictor inside a cloth bag he'd stuffed down his slacks. The European Union forbids the import or export of boas. I assume they mean the snake, not the thing,
not the
fashion
feather.
accessory.
Yes,
right. Authorities noted that the smuggler carried something in his pants that did not belong there, and that the snake was the most curious find among confiscated items over the past year.
Gives a whole new meaning to trouser snake.
Wow. Da-dum-dum.
Da-dum-dum.
Okay,
hey,
let's
here's
move right along.
Our new governor. I'm liking him.
Yeah,
so
what
far.
do you like about old Gavin Newsom?
The state is suing Huntington Beach.
Huntington Beach, the town down south.
The self-styled surf city.
Wealthy.
A Republican enclave.
Yes.
They have been shirking their responsibility for building the state-mandated number of housing units.
No.
Now, there's a lot of cities and counties that do that, and they've been getting away with it for a long time.
Yeah.
But there's a housing crisis in the state, in case nobody's noticed,
Really?
right? And so they basically, Huntington Beach says, oh, no, we're doing our job. We've allowed, we've approved 2,500 housing units since 2014.
Wait, how many? 2,500?
2,500.
2,500, okay.
100 of those are low income.
Whoa! Whoa!
And that's what the state,
Whoa.
the state mandates that based on, growth plans,
Yeah,
general plans,
right.
et cetera, that you have to take your fair share of housing units.
Like
they
that,
see a growth
yeah.
in population. They see a growth in jobs. You
That's
can't
only
just
fair.
shirk your housing responsibility onto other communities.
To the community
right?
next door, right?
So, Huntington Beach, these guys are, people running Huntington Beach are real jerks. They have refused to amend their housing plan to
Wow.
meet the state required
Yeah.
low-income housing requirements.
Mm-hmm.
They are also fighting a separate suit by housing advocates,
Okay.
and they're also battling the state on its sanctuary law. They want to cooperate with, ICE
I
and,
remember hearing
and
about that.
Border Patrol
That's just despicable.
more than the state law allows.
wow.
Now, they're a charter city like Petaluma, and if you don't know what that is, that means that the city has its own charter of laws, as opposed to being a state-chartered city or county, which you just take the boilerplate,
Interesting form of
state
government,
laws.
isn't it?
Yeah. So a court had ruled that they may not have to meet the state requirements for housing because they are a charter city. The state is appealing that court
Yeah,
ruling,
okay.
and last year the legislature passed a law that Governor Brown signed that closed that loophole.
Good.
Yeah, because
Very good.
you look at places like, one of the things that Jerry Brown did that was, asinine was he gave Marin County
Yeah.
a 10-year waiver on their housing requirements.
Why was
and
that?
see, because they're rich and have, political sway, right?
Okay,
So
yeah.
what does that mean? So that means that they won't be building their necessary housing units. So that means people who have to commute into the,
Right.
the
Into the-
community,
right.
causing more traffic,
Right.
causing more pollution.
Oh, I know. That's what I did.
More socioeconomic disruption and
That's right.
imbalance, right?
Right.
So basically, the state is saying, you know what? We're not letting you get away with this anymore,
Good.
and we're suing you.
Then that's under Gavin Newsom.
That's under Gavin Newsom.
Good. Do you think he was behind this?
Absolutely. Jerry Brown wouldn't address
Wouldn't
this
do it, yeah.
issue, right? Again, like I say, he gave Marin County a
Right.
10-year waiver.
That's right.
But Newsom is tackling this, and
Good.
he's taking the bull by the horns, and this is great. The state certified that Huntington Beach
Mm-hmm.
was out of compliance in 2015. They've been saying getting compliance. They haven't done it. It's now 2019, so they're suing him. They also have the leverage that if a city or county is not in compliance, they can take away state transportation funds, and everybody wants that.
That's pretty good.
So,
yeah.
so
sure.
good on Gavin.
Good
right?
on Gavin. That's great.
Go Gov.
All right, one more thing.
Yeah.
The Italian restaurant in Manhattan has allegedly banned women from sitting alone at the bar. How about that? An executive there says the staff at Nello, famed for its $275 white truffle pasta, insisted she had to get up from the bar seat on a recent visit. When she pointed out that men sitting alone at the bar they were sitting alone,
Yeah.
she was told the restaurant was enforcing a crackdown on hookers. And that the owner could run his business as he please.
How do they know how to distinguish?
I guess you ask. Politely.
Yeah, boy,
Right. That's
somebody needs a slap upside the head
They
there.
sure do. And $275 for a plate of pasta? I think I'll pass on that too.
Yeah, well,
I'm not going there.
yeah.
I'm gonna boycott
We're
it.
boycotting. them.
Boycotting it.
275
Take your
is way
Starbucks
too
coffee
much.
and just go somewhere else.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, man. I hope it's not the end. Is it time to go, Matt?
Well, Jim, I think we've used up most
I
of an
think
hour.
we have. We wasted another hour of
and
your
wasted
time.
another
boys
hour.
and
So
girls.
one more shout out to the introduction to Drawdown again. That's
let's hear it.
Wednesday, February 13th at the Bank Hub, the former Seed Bank on the corner of East Washington and Petaluma.
That's the real bank.
From 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, and this is going to be telling people the top 100 ways to fight CO2 carbon pollution.
What things that we can do as regular
Exactly.
citizens.
So this is hands-on stuff, folks.
That's great. That
and if you
sounds
want
really
it,
good.
if you want RSVP at what did I give the phone number?
Do you have to RSVP or can you just show up?
They'll probably squeeze you in, but better if you RSVP. Call them at 347-9465.
Okay.
With that,
All right.
that's
With
it,
that,
folks.
all right. See you in a
Thanks for
week,
listening.
everybody. Thank
Have
you
a
for
great
listening.
week.
Bye.
Bye.